Didn't you hear the news? I'm at the 58th annual New York Film Festival and I got to see a bunch of frickin' movies. So let's talk about some. One of the films I saw is the new film from Chloe Zhao called Nomadland. I was a fan of her previous film, The Rider. I don't know if I loved it the same way a lot of people did, but I was definitely really anticipating this film. This had an insane amount of buzz coming out of TIFF and Venice. Everyone was calling this as a Best Picture lock, Best Director lock, a Best Actress lock, and I can understand why, because it's excellent. It's an intimate drama and character study set against the vastness of the American West. We follow a woman named Fern, played amazingly by Frances McDormand, who recently lost everything in the recession and now has to live in her van and live life on the road. And she can't find steady jobs, she can only find seasonal work that doesn't pay her enough to make matters better for herself. So we journey along with her as she travels looking for work and meets people like herself and hears their stories and their struggles. In both The Rider and again in this film, Zhao has really proven that she has a gift working with non-actors. And the way she's able to blend her scenes with actors and non-actors in this is really impressive. I wonder what her process is like because there's some really great emotional scenes from non-actors in this film. I think partly because it's really their story. The non-actors in this film are people that are actually going through this, that really do live in their vans and have to drive between states for jobs. And the authenticity that that brings to the film is really powerful. And to circle back around to Frances McDormand again, she really is excellent in this movie. Her performance is so grounded and vulnerable. There's not many actors that can slip so seamlessly into the stitching of this nomadic lifestyle that Zhao lyrically depicts. And it's not this big, showy performance either, but it doesn't make it any less impressive. The way she plays her character internalizing her sorrow and her struggle is pitch perfect. But she isn't this quiet, morose type either. She's allowed to be expressive and have this jubilance, and McDormand really nails the balance between that. I saw a lot of people saying that this was a film that requires a level of patience, and I never really felt that way. I don't think this is like an exceptionally slow film. I would call it quietly mesmerizing, but it is a film that's less interested in plot and more interested in its characters and their stories and the emotional landscape between them. I don't know if the cinematography in this is as mind-blowingly amazing as everyone's making it out to be, but it's incredibly well shot for sure. Really sharp use of its spherical lenses. It felt really appropriate for the locations they were shooting in. There were several shots that perfectly weaponized the use of shallow depth of field and shooting on these longer prime lenses, which made for a lot of striking imagery. There's also several great tracking shots, and really in general a lot of effective use of subtle camera movement. So yeah, and looks pretty fucking good. This film sort of operates as this like quiet, almost poetic indictment of how the system fails the underprivileged. And the way this film empathetically captures that is definitely really special. But a part of me does wish that this film was a little bit more of a scathing portrayal of that issue. It's certainly still affecting, I just felt like there was still room for that. There was also some line flubs here and there from the non-actors. Nothing major, but definitely could have used another take or two. And weirdly, as great as the cinematography is, there's this one scene where the characters are dancing, and it literally looks like the cameraman tripped or something. Like the framing gets all wonky, and like the blocking seems off. It was very odd. I don't really know what happened. I wish I loved the score a little bit more. It's not bad. There's one cue that I do like, but for the most part, I thought it was just kind of okay. And there are some little conveniences, but they're not really important, so not a big deal. Also, this is a nothing criticism, but there's a character in the movie that's talking about the Smiths and how their lyrics are deep, and I laughed pretty hard at that. Don't they know that the internet collectively bullies Morrissey now? Regardless of all that, this is a beautiful and meditative character study about remembrance and moving forward. And I'm gonna give Nomadland an 8 out of 10. Another film I saw is the latest from Steve McQueen called Mangrove. McQueen is a very talented director who brought us films like Hunger, Shame, and 12 Years a Slave, and that other one too. Mangrove is actually one entry out of a 5-part anthology of films directed by McQueen. Mangrove is based on a true story of the Mangrove Nine, a community of West Indian residents living in Notting Hill around 1968 who faced police discrimination, harassment, and violence. In an effort to speak out, they organized a public protest, which eventually led to the arrest of the Mangrove Nine, who were charged with rioting and inciting violence and could be facing up to 10 years in prison. In the film, we mainly follow Frank Crislow, played excellently by Sean Parks. He's the owner of a restaurant and hangout spot called the Mangrove, which serves as a vital part of the community as a space to celebrate their culture and discuss their ideals. But for that very reason, the Mangrove becomes a center of focus for police harassment, which leads to the big day of the protest. Though we follow Sean Parks as the lead, The film really operates as an ensemble piece, and it's a damn good one at that. Every character and performance is given time to be expressive and passionate, which really adds to that strong sense of community and this exuberance found throughout the film. Everyone is given their moments to shine for sure, but I felt the other two standouts were definitely Malachi Kirby and Letitia Wright, both of which were excellent. Besides establishing our characters, the first act really serves to depict the real-life injustice that took place. The film then expertly shifts into a courtroom drama, and man, those courtroom scenes I found absolutely riveting throughout. In a time where we've seen these kind of hacky activist biopics that can feel tired, or preachy, or even cliche, McQueen proves that there's still a right way to do it. And honestly, what a perfect filmmaker to tackle this story. His direction is sharp, with a great visual style and a strong actor showcase. I was also really impressed by the varied camera work and the lighting in the film. I really loved that the shooting style would subtly change to accentuate the intensity or the emotion of their respective scenes. I also love these little moments where they would shoot a scene very unconventionally, and I wish more directors were willing to try out new shit with how to block a scene or how to shoot a certain moment. Similar to the camera work, I thought the lighting was great. It has a nice mix of different temperatures and intensities and hues that really kept it visually interesting without ever feeling overdone or in a way to draw attention. It's not like Bathe the Neons like a Nicholas Winding Refn film. One of my complaints would be there is a sort of bad guy in this film. There's like the police chief who felt like comically evil. He came off almost cartoonish in his one-dimensionality. And as much as I liked all the characterization in the film, it's mostly due to the acting, I think. There were definitely some scenes that offered some moment of empathy or specificity to their situation, and I think that added a lot, but I wish there was more of it. And that's a tough job for an ensemble piece with so many moving parts. And maybe some other little things, like there was a reveal for a certain character towards the end of the second act that felt very unnecessary. And I also noticed that some extras felt like they lacked direction, which is a job that usually falls on the assistant director. So I noticed, like, in these moments where they're chanting, it looked like some of the extras didn't know what they were supposed to be saying. Or there's this one guy on the jury in the courtroom scenes that is, like, smirking at what felt like inappropriate times. It was kind of odd. But these are all minor complaints in a film that I found to be truly great. It's a powerful film that highlights the grim reality for people of color that police brutality and abuse of power and the corruption of the system is as relevant today as it was 40 years ago. It's an emotionally charged, powerfully acted, and deeply resonant film that could not be more timely or important. And I'm also going to give Mangrove an 8 out of 10. Be sure to stay tuned for more reviews from this year's New York Film Festival. But that's it for now, bye-bye.